Director of Scouting, Andrew Ivins, here to break it all down. Now, Andrew, before we get into specific players, let's go over first. This is the first update since mid-March. There was some movement in the group of 32 five-stars, but most of the changes coming from numbers 33 to 247. Why is this update necessary, and what has changed in the recruiting world to help you and the team better evaluate these guys?
Well, Grace, we're calling it kind of a tweak. Back in March, it was a full-on overhaul, right? Coming out of everyone's junior seasons. Now here, right as we approach the summer months, we just wanted to make a few changes, and everyone's like, hey, what's happened the past few months? Well, we've had spring football in a few states, you know, Georgia, Florida, Texas, Louisiana. We've had full padded practices. We've had full padded games, full padded scrimmages. So all that is some context. I've been out on the road. The rest of my team's been out on the road. And then we've also had showcases and college camps all around the country. And every weekend, it seems like there's some different event. We're getting new data points from that, new testing, new eyes on evaluations. All that stuff's important. It's a big country. We're not going to see everyone. So anytime we can get that in-person evaluation, it is huge. And then finally, track season is wrapping up around the country. We've had a ton of state meets. Normally kids are going to run their best times at the end of the season. So we've seen that. All that has gone into this update. And then guess what? June, we're going to have even more camps, right? We're going to have the OT7 finals out in Los Angeles. We're going to have the Elite 11 finals in Los Angeles as well. And then we have all these college satellite camps and elite camps. So that's all part of the evaluation process. Yes, film is king, but sometimes the measurements, the track times, the multi-sport, all that plays into this.
Andrew, as Grace mentioned, a lot of the movement that came in this update comes outside the five-star range, and there are 25 new four-stars in the top 24/7, a lot of prospects to go through. But who are some names that really stood out to you that were maybe outside the top 24/7 that made the jump?
Well, let's start with Courtney Crutchfield, wide receiver that's committed to Arkansas. Our team loves this guy on offense. I actually think he could play defense. He's a three-phase player. He's also got some basketball scholarship offers. I just call him a mismatch out on the perimeter, and I love the fact that he's going to go play for Sam Pittman and the Razorbacks. They want to pound the football, run behind that big offensive line, but this is a guy that can win one-on-one on the outside. Really big fan of him. We went back and forth all morning trying to find a player comparison. Me and the scouting team, Van Jefferson was tossed out there, and I like that. Van Jefferson, who played at Florida, played at Ole Miss, now with the Los Angeles Rams. He was also a hooper in high school. Chris Cole's another guy that we need to highlight, a linebacker out of Virginia. I just saw him 2 weeks ago in the DMV, and this is a guy that is big and he can run. He's got some hurdle backgrounds, but you put on the tape, right? So he's got speed, and we just love the fact that he's a face-up tackler that can wrangle ball carriers down in space. And with the way football has trended, we know that teams are trying to get as athletic as they can. It's a matchup game, and Chris Cole is someone that could play all three downs. Former safety, has moved closer to the box, and the cool nugget with Chris Cole is he's actually related to Bob Marley. That's one of his relatives. He's also related to Rohan Marley, obviously Bob Marley's kid who played at the University of Miami. So like that about Chris Cole. Luke Reynolds, another guy we need to highlight, Penn State tight end commit. We just saw in the NFL draft how many tight ends came off the board there in day 2 and day 3. And what they all had in common is a lot of them played other positions when they were in high school. A lot of them were multi-sport guys. Luke Reynolds, he's someone that plays basketball. He was a quarterback last year. He tested off the charts a few weeks ago, 4.5 in the 40-yard dash, 4.29 in the short shuttle. We had questions about him as a pass catcher, exceeded expectations when Brian Doan, our Northeast analyst, saw him in person. You saw that player comp up there for Luke Schoonmaker. Cooper Patagna was at Michigan when the Wolverines recruited Luke Schoonmaker. He sees a lot of the same here in Luke Reynolds. And then finally, Nitro Tuggle, the last guy I want to bring up. This guy is a blur on tape. He zigs and zags his way around defenses. He's done it the past few years up in Indiana. He's transferring into IMG Academy for his senior season. We expect him to have a big year. He's got rubber bands for knees. Right after the catch, he's slippery, he's elusive, he has great vision, he can find the end zone. I think he's a guy that can make an impact in the return game. Another guy we kind of struggled to find a player NFL comp for. I said Kadarius Toney. Remember him at Florida and just how he would take a short pass and turn it into a monster chunk play or a large gain. Nitro Tuggle, someone that's going to be able to move the chains. And look, Georgia just got Dylan Raiola. You brought up the tight end they got, #1 class. This is someone that's probably been not talked about enough, and someone else that has tested really well. 4.5 on the lasers in the 40-yard dash, 4.36 short shuttle. Both those times show up on tape.
All right, rubber bands for knees and a name like Nitro. I am officially intrigued, Andrew. But we're going to look at the entire group of 32 5-stars. We'll start at the bottom with 32 through 27. The #2 quarterback in the country, Jaden Davis, at 29 overall. But, Andrew, there actually wasn't much movement, not just among the quarterback group in the top 32, but the entire top 247. Why have these guys stayed pretty consistent?
Well, we've made the decision, Grace. You know, the Elite 11 Finals is coming up here the 3rd week of June, and obviously that's a key evaluation point for these quarterbacks. You know, we've seen a lot of them in different settings, whether that be a 7-on-7 tournament. Some of them, we've seen them play games. We've seen them at camps, the Elite 11 regionals, and we kind of each have our own theories, but we're trying to get this to a consensus in the quarterback rankings, how we want to stack them. And the decision was made, hey, let's not make too many changes and tweaks right now with that quarterback order. Let's wait till after the Elite 11 because we'd hate to, jumble it all up and then have to change it a month later. So the quarterback movement is coming after the Elite 11 Finals. We're going to do another 2024 update at the end of June, right before July 4th. And that's when we're going to kind of move some of these guys around. Jaden Davis, obviously, he's headed to Michigan. We like him a lot. But there's some guys knocking on the door behind him. CJ Carr, who is headed to Notre Dame. He has looked excellent multiple times in person. You also got DJ Lagway out there, who has a very intriguing profile, has a super high ceiling. Air Nolan, who's headed to Ohio State. We'll see who makes it into the Elite 11 Finals, but that's when the movement's going to come after that. And again, it's not the final end-all be-all how they do out there in LA, but that is important just because you get to see all these dudes side by side. How do they react? Do they trade throw for throw? And we're looking forward to that.
Moving up the list, let's move on to 26 through 21. This group includes the #1 tight end in the country, Landon Thomas, currently committed to Florida State. You've also got the #1 offensive tackle in the class, Brandon Baker, and defensive lineman Justin Scott. Justin Scott's now one of 2 risers into the top 32, jumping 14 spots to #21 overall. What have you seen from Justin Scott, Andrew, that's helped him rise to 5-star status in this latest update?
You see that Kristen Wilkins player comparison out there. That's a guy that can dent protection in the middle, and I think the same can be said about Justin Scott and Blair. If we're going to be honest, we moved a defensive lineman out of the top 32. We wanted to get another big body in there, and as we met and discussed kind of this top group of players, Justin Scott was the one that had the most momentum behind him. We still don't have a ton of verified information on Justin Scott, but you dig into the player, the profile. We found some basketball footage. This is a kid that gets it done on the AAU circuit. Basketball was his first love, and that's important. In the most recent NFL draft, out of the 259 guys that were selected, over 100 of them were basketball players, and a lot of them were prolific hoopers. And I'm not saying Justin Scott could have played at the mid-major level, but he can attack the rim. He can get up and down the hardwood. We also love the two-way snaps. So this was kind of a case where, hey, we're sliding a guy out, and Ernest Wylor, who was dealing with a little bit of an injury. We wanted to get another big body in there. Justin Scott, he's got the measurables. He moves really well, so we felt comfortable getting him up into that top 32, and it's easy to see why the best of the best are recruiting him. Miami's in there, Michigan's in there, Ohio State's in there, USC's in there. Everyone wants a piece of Justin Scott.
A big athletic body and obviously one of the fast risers in this class, now reaching 5-star status. Moving on to 20 through 11, Andrew, in the top 24/7 rankings. 4 wide receivers headline this group, as well as the nation's top safety and 5-star KJ Bolden. In the middle, you got #2 linebacker in the class, Justin Williams. And as we mentioned with Justin Scott, he is one of the 2 risers into the top 32. Williams is the other. The Texas native rose 37 spots since the last update in March. What have you been able to see from Justin Williams to make him get such a big leap into 5-star status?
Blair, I talked a little bit about it with Chris Cole, right? It's a matchup game. You want your second level defenders or your guys in the middle to be able to run and cover. And Justin Williams, man, he has a ton of range. He's super fast. After we came out with our full field 32 rankings back in March, literally, I think that weekend, Justin Williams shows up to a camp, rips off a 4.44 in the 40-yard dash on the lasers. That's one of the best times out there, regardless of position for this 2024 cycle. So he can run, right? And then you put on the tape, he can crash between the gaps. He can get outside, run the alley, make stops out there. So we love that on him. Probably a guy that initially needed to be in the 32. I think ultimately he's going to be in the conversation for that number 1 linebacker spot. We really just kind of wanted to shrink the gap between Sammy Brown and Justin, and that's what we did with this update. Justin, a guy with over 100 tackles there as a junior. Again, someone that can play fast, and his profile, his testing backs up what we saw on film. So big fans of Justin, and that's why he moved up in the rankings.
All right, folks, before we advance to the top 10, you're already watching, so you might as well hit thumbs up on this video. Help us get to 100 likes today. Jump in the chat, send us your questions so that Blair can answer them at the end of the show. All right, Andrew, let's take a look at our top 10 recruits. Dylan Raiola does indeed remain the top prospect. Right behind him at number 2 is Ohio State wide receiver commit Jeremiah Smith. And Williams Nwaneri is the top defensive player at number 3. However, we have a newcomer to the top 10 here, and that's defensive lineman Aiden Breland at number 6 out of Mater Dei. He rises 19 spots from number 25, where he was in March. Andrew, what about his game pushed you and the rankings team to make him the nation's number 2 D lineman?
Well, Grace, I'll say this. You saw that top 10 there on the screen. I mean, these are the prospects we feel the best about right now. All right, we're still learning about this class. Those 10 are our kind of guys. And Aiden Breland is someone that's had a ton of supporters and fans behind the scenes when it comes to the scouting department. I think we've been trying to get everyone on the same page, and the more exposure some of our analysts have had to Aiden Breland, who really didn't play a ton as a junior there at Mater Dei, everyone's now on board, right? This is one of the top trench players in the class. He's explosive. He can get after the quarterback. He also does a little bit of track and field. I think last month he had a discus toss of 180 feet, which is an excellent marker for a player his size. He's a guy that can move around, and I think he's pretty scheme versatile. He can be 1 gap, 2 gap, whatever you need, but he can get after the quarterback there in the middle. So we're big fans of Aiden Breland, excited to see what he's going to do here as a senior for Mater Dei, which is absolutely loaded across the board. I mean, you want to talk about an all-star team. I think Mater Dei has a case for it. I don't know what the Max Preps guys are going to do with their rankings, but on paper, Mater Dei looks to be a force to be reckoned with, and Aiden Breland is the anchor of that defense right there in the middle.
Andrew, Dylan Raiola stays at number 1, recently committed to Georgia, and now he's recruiting a lot of his peers in that top 10 to join him in Athens. But when you look at that list, Jeremiah Smith right behind him, was he the only one under consideration to potentially, vie for that number 1 spot?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I mean, there was a ton of debate behind the scenes about what to do at number 1 and really what to do with that top 5. I think Jeremiah Smith, for some of our analysts, he's the highest graded player here in the 2024 cycle. I think he's also might be the safest player. And I mentioned the state track meets. Jeremiah Smith just won a pair of gold medals in Florida. He won the 110 hurdle, 400 meter hurdle. People always want to question his speed, right? Because he's got the size, he's got the ball skills, he's got the production, playing stiff competition down in South Florida. But how fast is he? And I think the hurdles are a pretty unique event, right? You got to be pretty athletic to do that, and he podiums twice, not only podiums, but again is standing where the first place person is. So there was some conversation. Ultimately, we decided to stay with Dylan Raiola for now. Our rankings are going to reflect the NFL draft. You have to go back to 1996. That's the last time a wide receiver went number 1 in the NFL draft. That was Keyshawn Johnson. So we'll see how this shakes out. But, I can say this with some confidence, and I think a lot of people on my team, Cooper Patagna, he would agree. I think Jeremiah Smith is the safest prospect right now in the 2024 cycle, the guy we feel the best about, and an exceptional talent, generational type of talent.
All right, great stuff, Andrew. Andrew and the rankings team working around the clock to put these rankings out there. And for more from him and Cooper Patagna, check out the Football Recruiting Podcast. It comes out every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. They are breaking down the biggest storylines on the trail. You can download or listen wherever you get your pods.